Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing good and enjoying your day so far. Mercules responding to his time on OpTic so far, talking about his greatest ever player, and certainly the player that he looks up to most as an individual to mould his playstyle upon. And Mercules, he's pandering in the right way. Now he says like there's nothing to do with joining OpTic, but as far as he's concerned, Scump's the greatest ever, certainly his favourite player, but the player that he's looked at over the last few years to look for inspiration was none other than Dashy. But he won't be able to play quite in Dashy's way today on this new team, otherwise there would be too much overlap. So Mercules is using his own style, maybe adapted from Dashy's play back in the day, to now using that alongside who Dashy is today to get an even more advantage for this OpTic team from now to the end of the season. Is it going to work? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Just wanted to start here. Envy confirmed after some rumours a few days ago from Ronnie that they are coming into the HyDra scene. They're bringing in Piggy and those other fellas. Now, this is pretty interesting. They've done a pretty banging announcement video as well. But Envy returning to HyDra is actually very interesting indeed, in my opinion, right? Because HyDra as a franchise, as an esports right now, is not exactly considered to be on the up, right? Like HyDra, it always goes this way. The new game launches, Infinite did a couple of years ago, several years ago it feels like at this point. The game every year improves maybe, they add some new maps, but, you know, it gets a bit stale, right? And I think that that's certainly the case for the HyDra scene now, is that there's not as much excitement around the game and the scene as there was a couple of years ago. But still, there's not, you know, disinterest in the scene. People still want to watch competitive HyDra. They're playing, of course, at the DreamHack event very shortly. And look, if it doesn't work out for Envy in their brief stint, they can just step away and it's not the end of the world. The point that I'm making, though, is it's not like there seems to be a crazy amount of money to be made in HyDra, right? It's not like, let's say, when Marvel Rivals or whatever comes out and teams are kind of scrambling to get rosters because it might be an esport that blows up and it could be a big thing. I think HyDra's kind of a known quantity. You know what you're going to get. And if you come into HyDra, you kind of expect what you expect. And that may not be that dissimilar to where Call of Duty presently is. And that's why I think this is interesting, right? Because Envy getting into HyDra definitely means, many would suggest, well, you know, is Call of Duty next? Because if Envy have the money and the resources and the commitments now, because, you know, HyDra's pulls that Envy branding away from the old OpTic, right? I mean, it's been such a chaotic few years, but effectively it was Envy. They had their own backers and I don't know if it was VC or like, you know, owners, investors, this type of stuff. OpTic was in a similar boat. Eventually it was Immortals and then OpTic got the branding back and he then took that to NRG. That became OpTic Chicago. Then he took the branding away from that, merged with Envy and those kind of owners over there, and then it effectively just became OpTic. Envy was relegated to the shadow realm, but that branding has been reacquired by HyDra, and now he's partnered, I think, with Native Gaming to, you know, to help the, let's say, financial resources behind the team become stronger. So the question is, I mean, it was the start of the month here, a couple of weeks ago, where Dallas Empire said retweet if you miss us. I know there's been lots of talk about it, hasn't there, now that they're back into HyDra, as to whether they're going to be back into COD. And look, to my understanding, you know, conversations are happening, let's say. Whether it makes sense, that's a different question. It may not be next year, potentially the year after, depends how the scene goes. But, you know, I do think that this Envy HyDra thing is relevant to a potential return of Envy in some form to Call of Duty as well. Whether Dallas Empire is also an available brand, presumably it probably is because they're tweeting from the account. So that was the other question really. But also OpTic, they own the rights to Texas in terms of the geolocation. So, you know, whether it would be possible to do this is another debate. But I suppose as it stands, there are currently 2 teams in Los Angeles. So you've got to think, right, that they shared that region. But, I mean, how would it work? Would, let's say, Dallas Empire and HyDra wanted to come back? That's within the domain of OpTic, right, and their geo region. Now, I don't really think this should even be a thing, but you know what I'm saying. Back in the day, it was OpTic Chicago. It was Chicago Huntsman. That's where they were originally based. They then took over Texas. So now Empire want to come back into Dallas. You know, would Hector have to sign it off? Because, you know, would he want to do that? You know, it's an interesting question, isn't it? I don't know what the future holds. Something interesting to think about. Just a couple of names in 8. Drazah, Huke, aBeZy, Slasher, Shotzzy, Neptune, Rancor, FeLo. Those are the ones grinding. You know, look, good to see likes of FeLo in there. I think it's always a talking point. I guess Slasher too, you could say lately. Players that have been kind of struggling. You know, I do always wonder when I see 8s happening, and it's not like there's even that many 8s happening between the players. Some of the guys like to play it, and for good reason, of course. Drazah's always in there. aBeZy seems to always be in there nowadays. A couple of guys, they're trying to work on their hardpoint, I imagine, on that FaZe team. but players that are struggling, right? Like FeLo's been in that boat, Lunarz maybe his teammate. Obviously a lot of players in that situation, you know, why aren't they playing, right? Sometimes they are, right? And I'm basing this off Drazah's tweet, but I think the point stands that there should be more 8 series than there are, in my personal opinion. Speaking of kind of FaZe, this is an interesting debate between the MVP discussion. Now, Methods gives his take and says it's Cellium. I don't know what Maven's issue is, but like, he must, look, I rate Simp. Don't get me wrong, Simp's one of the greatest players of all time. And for the first time I watched Simp play Black Ops 3 Chals when he was like 15, I was like, this is a different POV to what I've ever seen before. Like, the guy's insane, but this year, he's not been that insane, let's be real. I mean, in Hardpoint, he's been dropping 0.8, 0.9s consistently for the last couple of stages. I don't understand, like, I know that Maven loves Simp, but I don't understand what world he's living in that Simp is somehow the MVP frontrunner this season. Nameless, in my opinion, has it right in terms of at least the 3 names in the conversation. I think you can argue a number of ways. I think it's difficult to argue HyDra number 1. I think he's right up there, but I think it's difficult to argue him number 1. I think you can argue either Scrap or Cell. Maybe you can argue HyDra. Anyone else, I don't think you can argue personally, but that's my opinion. I think leaning Scrap's way just a smidge, but I think that it could well be Cellium. I think it all depends on what happens on the final event, really. But a couple of clips to share here for you guys. This was one of the pretty funny ones. So the other day we talked about angle responsibility, right? And this is what Parasite had come up with on the flank. In terms of if you're breaking a hill, where do the players look? Now, as I said in the video, what he's describing is, you know, how you play COD. Like, the feature, or let's say, I don't know, the concept that he's describing is nothing outrageous. It's not like he's just speaking BS. He's saying facts, really, right? Like, it is true. If you're sliding out, you need to decide and understand what your teammates are looking at, what they're going to clear, what they're going to check, and therefore to understand what you should be doing as well. That is a concept that is relevant. The reason why he was getting clowned for it is just because, you know, this is kind of just how you play COD, and also the way that he said it, right? Like, you know, angle responsibility is, and people were just gonna cloud on the way that he said it. Well, as I said the other day, it wasn't necessarily about what he was saying, because what he was saying is not necessarily wrong from a high-level functioning COD perspective. But yeah, it was certainly the way that he said it. But JP says, look, at the end of the day, he makes a fair point. It's something that OpTic have to think about. But the other thing that was said was from Mercules. So he had a great week, of course. You know, Mercules Masterclass had several great clips this week, of course, in both of the matches that they played. And the Ravens one was an absolute takeover, certainly on that final control. He also 1v1s all of the OpTic guys. They put that YouTube video out yesterday. You guys feel free to watch it after this if you have not done so already. It's some good content in there. But there was a clip from Mercules doing the rounds as well, in addition to this JP one, where he talks about the players that have inspired him as a player, one of which being Scump, of course. I mean, look, for guys in Mercules' position, or really anyone around about that type of age, it's difficult to find a player who didn't consider Scump to be the GOAT on some level and watch all his content and get into the scene because of him. That was certainly true, so it's not really a massive surprise. The other thing, though, is probably more interesting, where he's like, okay, which player did he base his playstyle from? And that's where things get kind of telling. Now, I will say that people are going to, oh, here we go with the OpTic cheese, right? Mercules has joined OpTic, and now he's just glazing the OpTic players. But he says in the clip, look, this isn't what it's about. The Scump thing is obvious regardless. Like, it's always going to be Scump in those type of conversations, so that shouldn't be a surprise. But it is always fascinating to hear what players people base their playstyle on. I mean, even I remember a clip from young Scrappy, and I'm talking Scrap when he was like 14, 15. He was on stream saying that he, you know, was trying to play like Scump. That was like kind of his idol as a player. And okay, Scrap nowadays is obviously a very fast AR, but he was trying to mold, like he would watch what Scump did, right? And this, I always find it kind of exciting to think about that younger players, you know, they're watching VOD, they're watching this guy play, they're watching that guy play, and they're thinking, okay, you know, this is how I should emulate my gameplay as well. I don't think everyone's been there.
How many hours have you dedicated to practicing angle responsibilities?
Yeah, and poor Dashy just keeps having to take.
I mean, chat, HyDra's right. Just no one's ever termed it anything, so that's why it was kind of weird. But HyDra's right. Like, going into a breaking scenario, you know where you're going to be. Like, logically, you know where your teammate is probably going to be clearing first, so you don't really have to like aim for it as much. So it is
Favorite player growing up? No. I see your message, brother. Yo, do these drills. No, we seen that shit. Don't worry, we seen that. Probably fucking. I said it in the podcast. Probably Scump, no lie. But like, who I like played like and like was probably like Dashy. I know, like, I'm not even saying this because I'm on the team now. I'm not even trolling. Like, Dashy was my favorite pro to like try to replicate, and then Scump was just like my favorite player. Guys that go.
The interesting part about this, of course, is that Dashy is a different player today than he was several years ago, right? Like, back in BO4, Dashy was not a main AR. He was, you know, what I mean, you wouldn't really even have called it the flex back then. I know that it was a combo going around, but really it was the second that, you know, the fast AR, the Maddox, the slaying AR, and there was a few Maddoxes going around, but that's what Dashy was good at. And around that era, that's what Dashy would play as. He was a high slaying, high speed, and, you know, he was playing with slower ARs, right? I mean, when Dashy was on the OpTic team, he had Kremp, and Kremp was just sitting back and chilling on the ICR a lot of the time. That's also not Kremp's like perfect ideal style, but that's what he did for the team. Dashy played with Formal as well in Cold War, and it wasn't the perfect AR combination, but Formal was the slower one, Dashy was the faster one. Now look, Dashy's an interesting player because he doesn't really like to flex, as in he's not going to pull out a sub. Scrappy actually will do that and has done that if necessary. Dashy can play fast, but he definitely prefers to play fast always on the AR, pretty much. But today, and I think certainly last year, a big adaptation that Dashy made was that he effectively became the hill kitten, right? It was definitely true in Modern Warfare 3 last season when Dashy was like, okay, Kenny's coming in, I've got a bit of a faster AR alongside me now. And last year's meta really was you stick your main AR in the hill, especially on maps like Skid Row. It was just so powerful you had to do it really. And that's what Dashy would do. He would lower engagements, lower pace, but he was doing what was necessary, playing the objective for the win of the game. And obviously it worked out rather well. They won champs. This year, they obviously went for a similar style, but Kenny was struggling for various reasons, and Skyz was also not great for various reasons, and Mercules has come in and is absolutely cooked. So I think what's interesting about Merc is that he says that he kind of based his style on Dashy. You know, we're not talking about basing his style on Dashy 2024. We're talking about basing his style on Dashy 2019, maybe, right? Like, kind of those early era, and even, you know, 2022, right, in Vanguard, there's also an idea there, because Dashy in that game was also pretty quick and also very heavy slaying. But, you know, his KD wasn't as good as Cellium's, but he was faster than Cellium, right? Whereas nowadays, it's not like Dashy's slow. I mean, he's averaging at a Slayer rating this year of 88.5, which is actually really impressive, right? I know his KD isn't crazy, but, yeah, Shotzzy's the Slayer rating is basically kills per series if it was going to go Game 5, Round 11. And Shotzzy's averaging 92, Pred had 89 when he was there, Huke had 88, Dashy's at 88 as well. But look at his other AR combos, right? When Kenny was there, it was a 77 for him, 72 for Skyz. Merc, I know he's only played 2 series, but Merc's at 100, near enough, like 98. You know, those are scrappy numbers. Those are actually more than scrappy numbers for now, but obviously it's a small sample size. But it's an interesting idea to think about that if Mercules can kind of, let's say, summon old Dashy, then OpTic's AR duo is effectively like old Dashy and new Dashy, which is maybe the perfect combination of AR players. So it's something to think about. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Just to quickly look at this, because a couple of days from now, we've got our final set of qualifiers of the entire season on the way. OpTic currently 4th in the standings. They're 2-1. Nice solid map count. They're going to have no issues, more than likely making it to the winners bracket. Very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.